my cat is down there, and she's probably going to yell while I'm talking. So, Britannia, it's Britannia Station here. I've been trying to do, a video every week. I don't always get to it because of, one reason or another. My roots growing in make it look like I'm balding. I try to put a smile on my face for you guys to make the video pleasant. When in reality, putting a smile on my face is exhausting. I'm not happy. I told Michael that he's not going to find me dead when he comes home from work, but I'm pretty damn close. Things are very serious, and mental health is very serious, and I made the mistake of reading the comments in one of my last videos, and somebody said, "Girl, what happened to you?" And somebody replied, "She's beautiful." Thank you for the encouragement, I appreciate it. And this person was like, "If you say so." And it's like, I get it. I'm fat. I got fat. But that doesn't mean I'm ugly. And for the longest time, I've told myself that I was ugly because I was pressured into sabotaging my self-esteem by all the people telling me that I was stuck up and vain and narcissistic, and that made me force myself to believe that I was ugly. And I 2 trips to the mental hospital, and I'm just like, I looked in the mirror one day and I told Michael, I said, "You know what? I'm not that bad looking. There's a lot of problems. I still pull out my eyelashes, so it looks like I don't have any eyelashes. And I just don't have the energy to put on fake ones, or any makeup for that matter. And because it's exhausting now. My soul is 34 years old. My mind is in its early 20s, and my body is almost 60. So, this video is going to be somewhat longer. It's also going to be triggering to people who are sensitive to any kind of abuse and eating disorders. So if you want to stick around and watch this, get some water, get a nice, big old thing of water. Don't be dehydrated, trust me. I have a problem with dehydration. Get a snack, my necklace keeps going into my shirt. Oh well. This is not going to be a happy video. And for those of you who are going to stick around, I really need you to listen and understand. And I'm going to try really hard to keep my words in a distinct order so I don't say something accidentally wrong. I have bullet points to try and keep myself on track. I cannot promise that I won't say So, first of all, this is something we all know. Words hurt. And those of us who grew up being victims of bullying have been told a few things to try and survive the bullying. Adults would tell us, "It's okay, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you." Fuck that. Because words always hurt. Always. They always hurt. We are emotional beings, and we may be on a spectrum of emotion, but we have feelings, and that's what makes us human. And you can't just say, this will never hurt, and then expect us to survive. Another thing that adults told us whenever we come to them is, oh, don't worry, they're just jealous of you. So guess what? I grew up thinking that all the bullies were just jealous of me for some reason. So when I got the cyberbullying, shoved down my throat, I'm all like, well, they're just jealous that muffins is popular, or they're just jealous that this, and this. And I tried to come up with reasons why they would be jealous. And I almost feel like that made them think that I was self-centered. But I was just doing what I was taught to do in situations of being bullied. That's what victims are taught to do. And I found out the hard way that it's not always jealousy. Sometimes it's just that people really enjoy hurting you. Like, sometimes it's even a sexual thing, where they literally get off by hurting other people. I'm not going to go into this too much, but there was a guy who tormented over 3,000 minors, kids, and blackmailed them. And I'm going to actually make a video based on this and surviving predators. Got them to send nudes and blackmail them and made them do things to their siblings and made them do things to their pets and stuff. This guy enjoyed it. And these people who tormented me definitely enjoyed it. I think maybe there was a couple that may have been jealous of my accidental success that I didn't even ask for, that I was just trying to have fun and share things with people. It got popular, and all of a sudden, I'm a celebrity. I have just a little over 50,000 subscribers, and I'm famous. Ring the bells for me. I'm famous. Everybody knows my name. Nobody knows who I am. Okay? I am just a normal person. I'm not an influencer. I am a tiny YouTuber. Tiny. And they came after me like I was this big, popular narcissist predator that needed to be canceled, when I don't even make enough money for groceries. There was no reason for me to be canceled. I'll tell you what the reason was. One person got butthurt that I called them out for being an ableist. And they just didn't get what they wanted. And then they stole something from me and I called them out for that. And you know what? I even tried to de-escalate the situation. And they said no. And they said, do you know who I am? That's narcissism. Do you know who I am? No, I don't. Do you know who I am? Probably not. Because I'm tiny. I am just somebody who is trying to make money because I'm disabled and I cannot work. The point is especially when somebody is suffering from mental illness, words hurt like bullets. And when you say something like, girl, what happened to ya? I already know I'm fat. I already know that I let myself go because of depression and trauma. I already know that. I don't need you to tell me that. And I feel like this person may have been a teenager, and teenagers are horrible. I could even say that I was horrible, especially with all of my abuse and stuff. I hadn't learned how to deal with it yet, even though I was not nearly as bad as a lot of the teenagers that I've seen videos about and met. If you don't understand that your words affect people, You need to put yourself in their shoes. What if that happened to you? What if something traumatic happened to you, and the only way you could deal with it was through an addiction? And then somebody says, and then you're trying to recover. You're on the very beginning of recovery to try and, become healthy and lose some of this. And somebody says, what happened to you? First of all, the stuff that I went through isn't secret. It's not. If you ask what happened to me, I ask, where have you been? And then when somebody tries to defend me saying that I'm beautiful, which hurts because I'm trying so hard to think I'm beautiful, and the furthest I've gotten is I'm not that bad looking. For somebody to try and defend my appearance, and then for that person to say, if you say so. There are a lot of pretty fat girls out there. I may not be gorgeous. I can make myself look better with makeup if I had the fucking energy. But it's bad enough that I have to deal with what has happened to me and what I've done to myself. I don't need you to tell me I look bad. The fact of the matter is I've come a long way despite my body. I've stopped picking at my face. Yeah, I still have scars that you can't really see through the, phone's camera. I've grown out my hair. I still pull some of it. And God, in the last 4 years, I cannot count how many pure white hairs I have pulled out of my head. My hair is turning white from stress. And I know you can't really tell because of the purple. And this was bleached. It all faded. I put it over my roots so they're darker, and then my actual roots are coming in. And I don't want to color my hair until I get the sweating issue solved, and I'll come to that. But if you ever want to say something that goes along the lines of what happened to you, just be nice about it. Right at the moment, I can't think of a nice way to ask what happened. I mean, in text, a lot of things can be misconstrued. You could say, oh man, Ritana, you don't look so good. What happened? But in text, it could sound like, you don't look so good. What happened? And maybe you didn't mean to sound mean. And maybe the first comment wouldn't have sounded so mean if you hadn't come up with, if you say so. And the fact that you wanted to try and discuss it through DMs is... no. I don't have the energy for that. I can't talk to people anymore. The social anxiety has gotten so bad. And the loneliness has gotten so bad. Everything has gotten so bad. But what we're going to address in this video, 15 minutes in, is how I got here. The reason behind the eating disorders. Because it seems what we've uncovered through therapy is that almost every problem I have, every struggle I have, every behavioral issue I have is from trauma. My most recent mental counselor that I've been working with to help with the binge eating, she explained it like your body is constantly in fight or flight mode. That's why I can't relax. That's why I often stutter. That's why it often takes me forever to get to sleep despite my medication. And that's why I eat fast. So I'm going to start out with, I grew up poor. My parents were not married. My mother, who was Erin, and I don't like to refer to her as my mother because I have disowned her, she didn't even know who my father was until they did a paternity test, because she's a whore. And my dad is not all that responsible. He's an alcoholic. He might have been doing drugs at this time too, but she was definitely doing a lot of drugs. That's where all the money went. She often worked at bars and stuff, and probably slept with the owners and all of her bosses. But we mostly had ramen. We didn't get to try like cool cereals. We got those little single serving, peel off the top cereals. And my brother, my half brother, he babysat me a lot. I don't have a lot of memories of it because it was so long ago. And we would eat the ramen dry, and put the powder on it and eat it dry. So, he has a lot of trauma from this stuff too. There were times when, Erin and whoever my stepfather was at the time, because she left my dad when I was 2. They had a big fight, and I remember screaming that I wanted to stay with Daddy because I liked Daddy better. Because, let's face it, out of the 2, my dad is way better, and I can actually call him my father. There's a lot of things that I wish he could overcome, but he's got a lot of problems too. So it was to the point that if your food was burnt, tough. If if we got popcorn and it got burnt, tough. You either eat it or you don't. If dinner was burnt, you either eat it or you don't. So I've kind of come accustomed to burnt food. So if my food ends up burnt, if Mike makes a pizza and our oven is dumb, and it burns the crust, he'll be like, "I'm sorry," and I'm like, "I don't care." That's food. Burnt food is food. We had, I think we had the dry top ramen more than we had the cup of noodles, but we did have the cup of noodles sometimes. We had more food when she was married to my stepdad, Mike, which is really funny that he was traumatizing. He actually put his hands on me. So I'm surprised that I'm able to marry a man named Mike. But, obviously they're 2 separate people. They're completely different. They look different and everything. So the name hasn't been bothering me. But I do call Mike Michael more often. I'm one of the only people who call him by his full name. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe that is a trauma response. Who knows? Because stepdad Mike was Mike. He was never Michael. He was Mike. And he was an alcoholic and did drugs and abused Erin and put his hands on me, and, you know, Aaron went to jail a bunch, Mike went to jail a bunch, you know, I saw some sexual things that I shouldn't have seen. Turns out that I'm a victim of covert sexual abuse, which means that you are exposed to sexual content at an inappropriate age. That has an effect on you, and it did have an effect on me. One time, I came home from school in the middle of the afternoon at like 3 o'clock, pure daylight, and Erin's on the couch. I come in and she goes, "Don't look at the TV." So what do? As a little kid, I look at the TV. What's on the TV? Porn. I agree. Who is watching porn in the middle of the day when you know your daughter's gonna come home? Like, seriously. What the hell? So I was exposed to a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been exposed to. Oh, I love you. We were homeless. And it turns out we might have been homeless more than once, and I didn't realize it. So there was one time when Mike kicked us out in the snow. We lived in Kokolala in Idaho. Very small place, very pretty place, very snowy. And I had a couple of friends. We didn't get cable. We got static. And it was a very small house, but I liked that house. And we lived on a lake. And my poor cat got frozen to the lake and ended up losing an inch of his tail like a couple months later. I love my kitty. But Mike kicked us out because they were having a fight and threw our clothes out into the snow. And we were out there and it was cold, and you know, I was little, I didn't understand. Why can't we go home? Why do you guys yell at each other? Why do you stab each other with forks? You know, oh God, how many times I've seen Aaron stab a man with a fork. It's too much. Like, I've tried to imagine myself stabbing somebody because I have homicidal thoughts. There's not a lot of people who don't. It's normal not to act on them. But I've tried to imagine myself stabbing somebody, and I feel kind of icky, because when I imagine myself stabbing somebody, I imagine myself stabbing myself, and the pain that comes with the fact that it's going into your organs, it's the fact that it's going into a living being. It just makes me feel kind of icky. So you know, obviously I would have to do it if it was the only way to defend myself. But I don't understand how Aaron was... No, I do understand how Aaron was able to do that, and I will get to that in a moment. So we were out there, we went to a gas station, one of those gas stations that had, like, microwavable food, and a microwave for you to microwave your food. I don't know if it was a gas station or if it was a convenience, like I don't remember. All I remember is there was a microwave in there and we had cup of noodles. And there was also a TV, and I don't remember what we were watching. But it was really, really late at night, and I was sleepy. And I think I fell asleep at the table. And when I woke up, oh my God, I can't remember this part. I don't remember when we returned back to the house. It was short. But the time that I was homeless and didn't realize it was when we lived in a tent on a campground. And, 'cause it was cheaper than rent. And I kind of thought, tent, home, not homeless. But we were homeless. And there were some other people who were living on the campground as well. You know, poor white trash, just like us. And then I always made friends with these people who came camping and then left because they had a real home. So my friends would always leave. And So I made friends. I went walking through the creeks and the swamps, and I found this dead mouse. It was still a pinky. It had eyes closed and stuff. I tried to save it. I tried to see if I could wake it up, and it didn't wake up, but I decided that it was my friend, and I kept it for a few hours, and I played with him. I didn't do anything to the body, like cut it open or break anything. I was gentle with him, and eventually I thought, this thing isn't going to wake up for me, is it? So I found one of the wells where we got our water, and I dropped him in. I don't know it's sex. I don't know if it was a girl or a boy. So, but I was pretty attached to it. So, dropping it like that was hard. But I had to accept that he was dead, and there wasn't anything that I was going to do, and no amount of bonding with it was going to bring it back. I was very little. So I don't even know how much it cost for us to stay at this campground. We had to get our own food from the environment. If Erin was good at one thing, it was fishing, and she knew how to take apart a fish, clean it properly. So I wasn't a vegetarian until I was 13, so I was eating fish. I found a cherry tree. It was a black cherry tree. And I think she was still with Mike at this point, so I think he would run and get us like chips or something. But we didn't have money, and I think he was out of work. He was a construction worker, and he was out of work. It's really hard to remember all of the details. I do remember it was my first time reading the story Pecos Bill, and hearing the narration by, oh my god, he's like a legendary actor. Why can't I remember his name? He was in Flubber. He played Batty in Ferngully, and hang on, that's gonna bother me. He was the genie in Aladdin, and I don't know why. He's like a legendary actor, and for whatever reason, for the first time in my life, I can't remember his name. That is so weird. I hate my memory. I also had 2 plastic puppets of Ducky and Petrie from Land Before Time, and Erin told me not to go into the river. So what did I do? I went into the river. Because I was a little kid and I didn't listen. I wanted to go into the river. And I was a big kid, so I thought that I could handle it. I couldn't handle it. I lost Ducky. She was gone. Forever. The current was way too strong. I was so upset. But that's what I get for going into the river. But anyway, I do not know how long we were there. It was a few months. It was a long time. There was a point where Erin could not take care of me. Well, before that, I was sick of her abuse, so I called my father and told him to take me to his house in Spokane. So he took care of me for about a year, but my God, is his family a nightmare. His mother, oh my God, is absolutely insane. And she's rich. They're all rich. My dad, he's not. He struggles. And, it's just like, hey, I have this whole family who's stinking goddamn rich in this huge-ass mansion, and I'm sitting here playing for scraps, taking little odd jobs in construction and stuff, because apparently that's the only job you can get if you're poor. And did they help him? No. And I'm pretty sure he was bipolar too, and probably had ADHD, and he wasn't getting any help for it. He drank. But anyway, I couldn't handle that anymore, especially since when he got mad, he yelled. And so I am very sensitive to yelling because of both of my parents. So I went back to Aaron, and around this time, my brother ran away. He wasn't like me. He did stuff like sneak cigarettes and stuff like that. I wasn't a bad kid like he was. But he was a victim of abuse, and he ended up running away to California. I was always mad that he didn't take me with, but when I got older, I realized that would have been kidnapping. But eventually, I got to California, and I lived with my grandma, so I had food. She wasn't poor. She wasn't rich, but I had food. I had access to it. So I got fat, as I think I was like 10, and I got kind of chunky. I don't know exactly my weight. I'd always say 160, but I've been 160, and I don't think I was 160, but I was chunky. And that didn't really seem to be a problem for my grandmother. But it was a problem for me. I mean, I didn't get made fun of, surprisingly. Wow. But, you know, I had the food now, and so my survival instincts kicked in and was like, well, we don't know when we're going to eat again. What if we never eat again? We have to eat a lot. But then Erin eventually came to California because she couldn't live in Idaho anymore. She needed my grandmother's help. And trying to remember it all. I think we lived with her for a while until she decided to get a snake. And then my grandma was like, I don't want a snake in this house. And it was a Burmese python, so she was going to get big. She was small and you know, cute, but she eventually got big. So I can kind of understand where my grandma was coming from. Erin had to build a cage for her. But we moved to Alpine, and then I was in middle school, and that's when the bullying got really, really bad. And I almost failed the 6th grade because the bullying kept me from doing my work. At this time, you know, with how I was raised and the responsibilities of my parents, there was a lot of things that are wrong that I didn't know was wrong, like threatening to kill somebody, because all I saw from Erin was violence. And there's going to be another video I'm going to talk about where I'm going to tell you what something else she did that is absolutely horrible, but that's going to have to be for another time. But I didn't know things were wrong. I didn't know that drawing my enemies dying was wrong. I thought that that was a comfortable way and a safe way to get out aggression instead of, you know, getting in a fight. And there were a lot of times where I wish I had just attacked the person who was bullying me. But I am kind of glad that I didn't, because I would have gotten into big trouble. You know, it's better to draw out your feelings, even if it's seen as a red flag, because a lot of people who do that end up growing up to be like serial killers. My life is very, very similar to Alyssa Bustamante's, and she grew up to kill a little girl. So I think there's a lot of things that I avoided in my life that would have led me to doing something that I now am not able to do because of the way my life went. And it's really, really scary, because I'm not saying this out of pride because that's weird, and I don't know why anybody would be proud of this, but I do have a criminal-like mind. I was a sociopath for a very long time because of the way I was treated and the way I was raised. And I managed to get out of that, thankfully. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, now I have all this extra empathy and it's hurting me. So it's like a double-edged sword. But there is a good chance that if my life had gone differently, I would have killed somebody. And I'm not proud of that. But that is kind of why I write murderers. You know, it's these homicidal thoughts that are still there even though my life hadn't gone in the way that would have made me a real killer, because it's a way to vent. It's also a way to confront the things that I'm afraid of. And it's a way for me to explore horror without hurting anybody and without getting hurt. Because I don't want, as much as I can fantasize doing horrible things to the person who started the hate campaign against me, I would not do it. If we came face to face, I would probably just stay verbal. But I have a feeling that that person would not be able to come face to face with me. Because when you're behind a screen, you can do anything you want, bitch. Do you know who I am? So, with all the bullying in middle school, I stopped eating, and we also didn't have a lot of, money for food. Again, she was always hopping around jobs and, being a house cleaner, working at bars, CPS was involved, and, she kept bringing home animals that I had to take care of. She was an animal hoarder. She claimed she loved animals, but in my video where I talk about what she did, you're gonna understand that love isn't exactly something that's in her vocabulary. So, I got skinny, and I was really skinny, and then I actually started to starve myself. Like, I would refuse all food. I'd eat, like, a bag of chips or something. And that was around when I was 14, and I was actually living with my boyfriend and his family, and I don't remember why. It had something to do with Child Protective Services and Aaron and eviction. Did she get evicted by that time? I don't remember. But yeah, that's when I lost my virginity. So but I also had this problem where I was embarrassed to eat in front of people. So there were many reasons for me to starve myself, and I just didn't eat. Then what happened? I think my grandma took me after that when I was 14. I was in 8th grade. I was still going to the middle school in Alpine, so she had to drive me. It was, and Erin was living there too. I was sleeping on the couch, and she was in the guest room. And that lasted up until I went to wake up Erin and go, it's time for school, which we had no problem with until this morning. But all of a sudden, she was just mad and calling me a bitch and yelling and screaming, and it woke my grandmother up, and, she heard everything that Erin said, and she tried to talk her down, and it wasn't working. I was crying, and she she came up, and this, for the very first time, maybe there is a God. For the very first time, somebody saw the abuse. Because she hit me right in front of my grandma, and then I was like cowering in the corner, and she all of a sudden tried to be all like, you know, Mom, we're out of here, because my grandma, her mom, and she tried to be all like, come on, honey, we're gonna get out of here, and I'm like, don't fucking touch me, you know? And so my grandma had to call my Aunt Patty, and my Aunt Patty is a psychologist, and she is also tough. She grew up with my mom. They're sisters, not by blood. But she told me some horror stories, the things she had to deal with Erin. So she wasn't taking any of her shit at this point. And she told Erin to leave, or she was going to call the cops. Meanwhile, my grandma takes me to school, because I was the type of person to never miss school. Missing school gave me panic attacks, because I had to be there. In elementary school, I went to several elementary schools, but there was one elementary school I remember I got an award for perfect attendance, and it made me so happy. So I was like, I'm gonna stay in school, you know. And even though I did get bullied, it was still better than home. And, you know, in some of the schools there were food programs, so I could have lunch, until I started just refusing food altogether. But later that day, I got a call in the office, and they said that they had removed custody of me from Erin. And so my grandma got custody of me, and she eventually actually legally adopted me. But I was living with my grandma again, so guess what? I had food, I got fat. At 16, I was rather chubby, and not nearly this, but chubbier than I wanted to be. Now, I don't remember why I started starving myself again. I went into junior year. Throughout junior year and through senior year, I didn't eat breakfast. I would get up really early to do my makeup, because it would take me a long time to do my makeup. Wouldn't eat breakfast, went to school without a lunch. I would eat my best friend's pickles, because she got cafeteria lunch and she got pickles and didn't want them. So I would eat them. And then I'd come home and have a snack. Then I'd have a full meal dinner. Not like huge, but just like a regular meal dinner. And go to bed. I was very skinny. But I thought I was fat. I had it in my mind that I was fat. And no one was going to tell me otherwise. No numbers on my pants were going to tell me otherwise. I was fat. So, I didn't eat. And when I did eat, it was usually very unhealthy. I was scrawny, I kind of had more angles going on, and it wasn't until I was like between 18 and 19 where I started to eat a little more, because I graduated from high school, and I tried to kill myself in the early summer after graduation. And then after that, I started to eat a bit more, because I wasn't going to school. I was sleeping in until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then eating stuff, you know, and going out with friends and going to fast food and stuff. So I gained a little more weight, but I wasn't big. I was actually at a pretty decent weight. I think I was actually really pretty, but I still thought I was fat. But I still kept eating. And I also had this notion thinking that, oh, I can eat what I want because I don't get fat. Because when I was starving myself and then I'd eat what I wanted, it wouldn't affect me because I was starving myself and I hadn't had any other food prior. So for some reason, I had it in my mind that I had a metabolism issue and I couldn't get fat. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. So I was eating, I would say I was eating a healthy amount at that point, but I was still eating a lot of candy and drinking a lot of juice and soda and stuff. But it didn't seem to be affecting me too much. And then I went to Spokane. I went to go see my dad for the first time in 10 years. And they had a lot of food. And I got big. Not as big as this. This is as big as I've ever been. So, and I didn't realize it. I ate a whole lot of cake at Christmas time. My sweet tooth is abhorrent. But, I ended up suffering some abuse there, too. Like I said, my dad's mom is a psycho, and she went psycho on me and decided to hold me hostage in a restaurant and tell me how my life was gonna go. She said that I was gonna get used by some man, and I was gonna get raped, and I would have to come to her for money, and just all these things that were gonna happen to me. Well, you know what? They haven't happened to me, Carol. Seriously, I hope she's dead. I really do. She is a monster. People will say, oh, don't wish death upon anybody. She was a monster. She kept bailing out her pedophile son every time he got arrested for being a pedophile. She was a monster. Can't even. And it's because all these things happened to her. And at the time, I was dating a woman. So, because it happened to her, it was going to happen to me. Well, it hasn't happened to me. So I got fat. And then I came home, I got a job, and I had money to feed myself. So I did lose a little bit of weight, but it was still not very much. And this was when we still thought exercising helped with weight loss. So I would be walking to and from work and to and from beauty school to try and lose the weight. And, well, I kept my blood pressure down, I'm sure, or not blood pressure, blood sugar, because I have high resting glucose rate for whatever reason. But it didn't help me weight-wise, because exercise doesn't help. And then my depression started getting worse. I was living with, I'm going to call her A, the person who lied so much that she traumatized me into taking a vow of honesty. She was dealing with a lot of depression, and she didn't know how to deal with it. And she was extremely fat. She was still fatter than I am right now. But she would say she wasn't. She would say that she was a certain size, and we would just kind of look at each other, like me and our other friends, and just not say anything because we didn't want to make her explode. And her lies got worse and worse and worse. It's like the more depressed she was, the more she lied. And so living with her, my depression got worse. And I also was not medicated. I wasn't medicated until I started living with Michael, I think, in my early 20s. And so, we would eat an entire freaking pizza, together. Like, I'd eat like half of it, and she'd like eat the other half. I could probably eat an entire pizza myself, honestly. We'd always go out for burritos because there was this little Mexican shop that had just the best freaking burritos. And I kept gaining the weight, and finally I met Michael at my work. I moved in with him. Again, still had access to food, so I kept gaining more weight. And then I went to a convention in LA with a now ex-friend, because he is an ex-friend because he left me in LA, and I had to get a ride with strangers, which I am goddamn lucky that they were cool and they weren't serial killers. And then I had agoraphobia for 2 years. Agoraphobia is where you're afraid to leave the house. So I literally didn't leave the house for 2 years. This caused a problem because I couldn't get more refills on my medication if I didn't go see my psychiatrist. So there was a point in time where I didn't even have my medication. And I'm sure a lot of you fell victim to that. I guarantee that a lot of my meanness that anybody experienced came during that time when I didn't have my meds. I guarantee it. Finally, after 2 years, I left the house and I went to the mall with my best friend. And after that, I couldn't leave the house without somebody with me. Eventually, Michael secretly started dieting. He started counting calories. The reason why he did this secretly is because he wanted to see how well it worked before he came to me and told me I should do it. Because he knew that if he told me before he proved that it worked, I wouldn't have done anything. So, he proved to me that counting calories worked. So I dieted, and I was pretty successful. I didn't get to where I wanted to be, but I lost a lot of weight. I was exercising a lot, I was eating better, I was counting my calories, but my stomach did what most human stomachs do, and adjusted to the size of food you were consuming. So the less I ate, like the healthy amount of calories, which I think I brought myself down to like 1,500 calories or something, my stomach shrank to accommodate for that, so I would get full after a smaller amount of food. That stopped happening a few years ago, and I don't know why. So, cyberbullying escalated because I had started playing with fire and muffins. And apparently, when you make something that you enjoy and other people enjoy, it's bad. So, I started getting called self-centered. Why? Because people liked me? That's not being self-centered. That's them liking me. That has nothing to do with me. And they would call my fans white knights, and it was so funny. I actually made a drawing of a dumb-looking derp guy, a knight riding a horse, and a stupid-looking princess going, and I called it White Knight. And one of the people were like, "This is really ironic because all of your fans are white knights." And I'm like, No. See, this is making fun of you. This is making fun of all of the people who are calling my fans white knights. How did you not get that? And that's not the first time that's happened either. One time I was trolling some other people who were trolling me. They were like calling me a Karen and stuff, and I'm like, way not a Karen. So I started calling them a Charlotte because I was playing dumb and I was pretending to just be saying female names. They took it seriously. I cannot believe they took it seriously, and they actually thought that I didn't know what a Karen was.